So this is what led us to developing BrakeAce. So we developed a brake power meter because there was no way to understand why people were able to ride just as fast but save energy. So we had to understand why they were riding faster or slower in the first place. So we have the brake power meter, and then it became, okay, let's go back to the basics, get the data and try and understand the data and make it usable for people. So that's where we're at now with the BrakeAce. We're taking those previously unmeasurable aspects of performance, we're making them measurable, and now they're actionable steps for the coach. So that's where we'll eventually be with all kinds of data.
And this is exactly what I've seen Stride do with the running power meter. It's one thing to have this technology and then everyone goes, yeah, but what do I do with it? What does it mean? And that's one of the things that Matt's developed with a brake power meter for mountain biking that measures the actual power input, or I guess output, of the brakes and deceleration on a mountain bike trail that shows you exactly, like we're seeing here, where the brake events are happening, how hard, how much, how long, everything's happening in terms of deceleration with the braking, and then being able to, just like Training Peaks, recommend actionable points for the rider to change their braking habits.
We talked about normalized power before, and we said it's not perfect. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect. So we're going to look at that a little bit more on 2 rides, and we have a link to this article if you want to read this full article and get all the data. It's on a mountain bike ride, but I think this is really applicable to anyone who's doing something that's really intermittent, where it's off and on. So what we'll do is we'll compare 2 climbs. One was on gravel and one was on a single track trail, and we'll look at kind of what we saw as weaknesses in the data. So with this first climb, they were both 9 minutes and 15 seconds, so that's easy. So Will, on this gravel climb, the average power was 191 watts and the normalized power was 198 watts. So there's not much variability there, right?
Yeah, 191 versus 198, like 7 watts, pretty similar.
That's about as close as you can really get, and then that's what we expect to see on something really smooth with no reason to accelerate or decelerate a lot. Like on
it's just a gravel climb, you're just tempoing away, taking it off.
So what we see in this climb is we see the average heart rate and max heart rate are actually not that different. So average heart rate was 142 beats per minute, max heart rate was 154. Again, not that different, and actually probably still within zone 2 for this athlete. This is a standard climb. So let's then look at a more complicated climb, and then we'll talk about some of the differences. Okay, so this climb is also 9 minutes and 15 seconds, and it also has an average power of really close. It's at 202 watts. And Will, tell me what you think about the variability here, but the normalized power was also 216 watts. So 14 watts different.
Yeah, with about the same percentage change. Okay, so hugely variable. You can see it, the pink line, sorry, up and down.
Yeah. So, but as far as normalized power, what do you think about the difference between the normalized power and the average power?
There's a bit of a difference there, like 16 watts. It's like shows they're working a little bit. Like it accounts for a bit of variability.
Okay. So it's a little bit more variable, but then when we look at heart rate, we're seeing average heart rate for this climb was 178 beats per minute compared to the last climb, which is 142 beats per minute.
Yeah, that's quite a bit different.
It's
very different.
Yeah.
Effort.
With a max heart rate of 187 beats per minute.
Yeah.
So it was hard, right? But if we look at just normalized power or even average power, they're both pretty similar. And it's not telling us actually how hard this climb was.
Yeah, so like what's causing the huge discrepancy between like these 2 rides? So the climb's the same elevation, it's the same duration. Normalized powers, was 190 beforehand, it's like over 200 now. Not massively different to indicate like a 30 watt difference, 30 to 40 watt difference in heart rate.
Yeah, so this is a mountain bike climb. So we're not looking at gravel anymore. We're now looking at trails. So it was really technical. It was the exact same length and power was similar. Normalized power was similar, but the heart rate was massively different. And there was massively different demands and lots more time spent above threshold in this climb. So this is what normalized power isn't able to show us.
So that's really mountain bike specific in terms of the huge peaks and troughs in the power.
Yeah, do you think with when you're looking at a running file, you'd see something similar to this?
Well, one of the caveats of running power is that the variability is nowhere near as large. If you have a cyclist and they have a threshold of 300 watts, they're able to attack within an event at 800 watts for 30 odd seconds. They're able to push on at 500 watts for a few minutes, come back to 200 watts. The thing with running is we're never able to come way down under threshold. You either sit at, if we're just talking, about a half marathon, say, like a 1 hour and a half kind of event, you sit at threshold and then you go slightly above. There's no need in any sense to like attack at 500 watts, 600 watts. So the variability remains very slim and small just due to the nature of the demands of running. Like why the only time it's going to be significantly lower is when you are forced to walk up a hill. But really there's not going to be the huge peaks above it. And if there is, it becomes very clear later on in the race where there's a lot of walking or a lot of very slim troughs, but there's nothing that would cause the huge difference in a gravel versus a technical climb in terms of the time above threshold. It's only ever going to be below because you're only ever going to be forced to walk. You're not really going to be able to be forced to go even harder above over rocks and stuff like you do in mountain biking.
Cool. I'd never actually thought about that with running, but this just goes to show that it sometimes takes a more deep dive analysis when we're trying to understand the demands. We can't just look at average all the time. So we need some context and to understand what's going on.